In this module, I want to discuss in more depth the 6 key transformations that constitute the way to get on a path of sustainable development and to achieve, indeed, the Sustainable Development Goals and the Paris Climate Agreement. Each of these transformations is itself a set of investments that spans all of the stakeholder sectors of society, government, business, and civil society. Each of these transformations entails a real change of how our societies operate and what our government policies are as establishing frameworks for society. And in total, these are the transformations that can achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. To make a transformation really means to make specific investments in physical infrastructure, in intellectual know-how through research and development, in skills and health of the population. And those investments, of course, require resources. So the transformations tell us what we need to do, but also we need to determine how we're going to pay for what we need to do. So transformation 1 we call education, inclusion, jobs, and growth. What are the dimensions of this transformation? Well, the first and critical part of this transformation is to ensure that all children have access to quality education, that no child is left behind. And we now understand that schooling needs to begin early, earlier than the traditional primary school level in first grade or even kindergarten. We now understand that early childhood development, ages 3, 4, 5, marks a critical period of neurological development, of brain development, that is, and a critical period in which young children can gain skills of cognitive learning and skills of social behavior as well. So SDG 4 calls for universal access from pre-K through the completion of the secondary level. For high-income countries, that's not a stretch in particular, though the question of quality may be an issue. But for the poor countries, this is a revolution. And I think it's one of the most important transformations that needs to be made. In a typical low-income country in sub-Saharan Africa, today, only around 1/3 of the kids are finishing high school, upper secondary education. This will not work because upper secondary education is vital for gaining at least the rudimentary skills for a digitally based economy of the 21st century. The old jobs that were based on manual labor were hard, they were physically arduous, they were not well paying, but now they're literally vanishing because smart robots, machines, information technologies, smart systems are replacing those jobs in any event. So the first part of the education transformation is get kids in school, keep them in school with a quality education through the secondary level. A second dimension is gender fairness in education and in the labor market. We know that there's a long way to go. In most parts of the world, women are a much smaller part of the remunerated labor market than men. Women work very, very hard, but often in home labor, in production of staple crops on smallholder farms. They tend to the family, they do home production, but they're not earning cash income. And therefore, fairness in the labor market means that girls as well as boys stay in school, that parents don't differentially pay for their children, the boys to stay in school, but the girls being forced to drop out early. We need universally accessible education for boys and girls, and of course a strong social norm, part of SDG 5, for gender equality in access to education, and we need legal rights for women's rights in the workplace. A third key part of the transformation is from schools to work. Now, sometimes it's said, well, a young person finishes school, go find a job. And indeed, in most countries of the world, that's how it works or doesn't work. But the school-to-work transition is not an easy one. It's not an easy one because often what is learned at school is not the skill base that's needed by companies that are hiring. And often young people lose their way. They end up neither in school nor in employment, but end up with an education, but without a job at the end. The country that perhaps has best bridged the school to work phase is Germany, because Germany for more than 100 years has had a very extensive, very successful apprenticeship program where young people are given vocational education often, but within an enterprise. That enterprise may have no long-term obligation to those young people, but provides jobs partially funded by the government for on-the-job training and skill development. Many, of course, stay on in that company afterwards. Others gain skills that allow them to make a move to a different enterprise. But what Germany has that almost no other country has is very low youth unemployment because of the success of the school-to-work transition. And fortunately, the German government is interested in sharing that expertise with other countries. A fourth key area of this transformation is to ensure labor standards throughout the economy. The International Labor Organization has a set of basic principles that governments have subscribed to, businesses and trade unions, but often these labor standards are not enforced. But these are rights of workers to not be treated arbitrarily, to organize, to have their voice within the companies, to have fair remuneration, to have safe workplaces. And this is a core part of transformation as well. The SDGs are very clear. No forced labor, no forms of modern slavery, no child labor. We need labor rights in the enterprises. And a fifth and final part of the skills and jobs and education transformation is to help all parts of the world to become more innovative. Right now, innovation measured, for example, by the research and development outlays as shown in this global map, or by the amount of patents that are successfully filed by inventors in different regions of the world, or by the royalty earnings on intellectual property in different parts of the world economy, show an incredible spread between highly innovative parts of the world economy, typically the richest or the fastest growing, and places that have almost no innovation today because they lack a scientific workforce, because they lack the public sector funding for research and development, they lack the tradition or the basis to get started in innovation. Countries that don't innovate can import technologies from other countries, and that's a key part of the development process. But countries that innovate get an extra boost in that they have faster technological change and they earn the returns of the research and development. And so part of the Sustainable Development Goals, especially SDG 9, call for building the institutions, the public financing, the science and technology and engineering and math skill base to enable all parts of the world to become part of this global innovation system. Taken as a whole, this is the first of the transformations: education, skills, inclusion, good jobs, and growth with innovation.